She resurrected her brother, bound herself to 4 demons, slaughtered angels, dismantled gods, and only then dared to reclaim her soul. This is Liliana Vess, Planeswalker, villain, survivor, the necromancer who paid the ultimate price for power. Liliana Vess was not born into poverty or obscurity, but into privilege. Her family, the Vess line, lived in the Caligo forest on Dominaria. They were respected nobles, her father a stern general, her mother a healer of repute. From the beginning, Liliana seemed destined for greatness. She was clever, strong-willed, and utterly unwilling to live a quiet life in the shadow of anyone else's expectations. What set her apart, even in childhood, was her fascination with power, particularly the kind that skirted the edges of morality. She had little patience for tradition, preferring instead to test boundaries, pushing against the rules of her family and her society. While her parents saw magic as a tool of responsibility, Liliana saw it as the key to shaping destiny. The pivotal moment of her young life came with her brother, Josu, when he fell gravely ill. Liliana sought a cure. She was told of the Essus root, a rare plant that might restore him. But when she arrived at the grove, she found it destroyed. In despair, she encountered a mysterious figure, the Raven Man. He whispered to her of darker solutions, of necromantic power that could heal where mundane remedies failed. Liliana, desperate to save Josu, accepted. She infused him with black mana, necromantic energy beyond her comprehension, and for a moment, it seemed to work. Josu rose from his sickbed, strong once more, but the magic was twisted. His mind was fractured, his body was corrupted. He became a monster, raging and incoherent, lashing out against the family he no longer recognized. Liliana watched in horror as the cure she had chosen damned him. In her grief and fury, she summoned the dead to end his suffering. The act tore her soul apart. That was the moment her spark ignited. She was wrenched from Dominaria and hurled into the blind eternities, landing on a world she had never seen before, Innistrad. Her path as a planeswalker had begun, born not from triumph, but from failure, guilt, and the death of her beloved brother. Innistrad was a grim world, steeped in death and shadow. For Liliana, it was a natural fit. The necromantic arts came easily here, and she sharpened her talents amidst vampires, liches, and other horrors. She refused, however, to be defined by death itself. She was alive, and she intended to stay that way, powerful, eternal, and untouchable. It was here that she first encountered the demons who would define much of her destiny. Liliana sought to escape the limitations of morality. To achieve that, she made pacts with 4 demons, Kothafed, Grizzlebrand, Razaketh, and Belzenlock. Each contract etched itself into her skin as glowing runes of power. The price was her servitude, but the reward was strength beyond imagination. For years she served these demons, even as she quietly plotted to free herself from their chains. Her most fateful confrontation came with Grizzlebrand. Trapped for centuries in the Hell Vault, a magical prison that also contained the Archangel Avacyn, the demon's freedom was a carefully orchestrated disaster. Liliana saw her chance. With the aid of the Chain Veil, a cursed artifact of immense necromantic power, she struck Grizzlebrand down. The Veil became both her greatest weapon and her greatest burden. It amplified her magic to staggering levels, but its whispers ate away at her soul. With each use, it demanded more of her life, her sanity, and her freedom. But Liliana, ever ambitious, bore the weight. She had already damned her brother. What was a little more darkness if it meant seizing control of her own destiny? Her war against her demon masters continued. She slew Kothafed with merciless precision. On Amonkhet, she turned her wrath upon Razaketh, this time with the help of an unlikely alliance, the Gatewatch. One by one her pacts unraveled, but the Veil left scars deeper than any ruin. Liliana had won battles against her masters, but the war for her soul was far from over. Even as she toppled her demon overlords, Liliana's freedom was incomplete. She was still bound, her contracts manipulated by a force greater than the demons themselves. Nicol Bolas, the Elder Dragon Planeswalker whose machinations touched every corner of the multiverse. Bolas had seen her desperation, her hunger for liberation. He had woven himself into her final pact, ensuring that even as she slew her demon masters, she remained in chains. Only this time, they bound her to him. Liliana bristled under his control. She had sworn never again to be a pawn, yet here she was, caught in the talons of the most dangerous being in existence. And yet, she played along, because Liliana understood something most did not. Survival required compromise. She would serve Bolas if she must, but she would never stop looking for her chance to betray him. The runes burned against her skin, flaring whenever she drew upon the Veil's power. They were constant reminders that her soul was not her own. The weight of servitude pressed down on her, but also sharpened her will. She would endure, she would scheme, and when the moment came, she would turn on Bolas himself. Fate intervened when Liliana crossed paths again with the Gatewatch. Jace Beleren, Gideon Jura, Chandra Nalaar, and Nissa Ravain. The Gatewatch was a coalition of planeswalkers dedicated to protecting the multiverse. Liliana's reasons for joining were anything but noble. She needed allies, and strong ones, if she was to survive the wrath of Bolas and destroy the last of her demonic contracts. Together, they fought horrors beyond imagining. On Innistrad, they confronted the madness of Emrakul. On Amonkhet, they stood against Bolas himself. Liliana fought alongside them not out of loyalty, but because their goals aligned with hers. And yet, something very unexpected happened. For the first time since her brother's death, Liliana began to care. She would never admit it, not even to herself, but the bond she formed with Jace and Gideon pulled at the armor she had built around her heart. She remained self-serving, calculating, always looking for an angle, but with each battle, the Gatewatch became more than pawns. They became companions, allies. Perhaps they became even friends, and that terrified her more than any demon she had encountered. The true test came on Ravnica during the War of the Spark. Nicol Bolas unleashed his grand design, the Dread Horde, an army of undead Eternals harvested from the fallen of Amonkhet. And who did he appoint as their general? Liliana Vess. As Liliana Dread Horde General, she commanded death on a scale the multiverse had rarely seen. Entire legions rose and fell at her command, a tide of corpses sweeping across Ravnica's streets. To those watching, it seemed as though she had finally given herself wholly over to the darkness. But inside, the conflict raged. Liliana had never been Bolas's willing servant. His commands burned against her very flesh, the pact twisting her body whenever she defied him. She was trapped once more, her own immense power turned into a weapon for a tyrant. And then, at the climax of the war, Liliana made her choice. She turned the Dread Horde against Bolas. With a single act of defiance, she shattered her pact and risked annihilation. Bolas's retribution was swift. He sought to obliterate her for her betrayal, but in that moment, Gideon Jura intervened. Gideon sacrificed himself, taking the lethal curse upon his very own body. His indomitable will shielded Liliana, sparing her life. She watched as he perished, a man of honor who had once mistrusted her, now giving everything to save her. The weight of that sacrifice crushed her. For the first time, Liliana felt not just guilt, but the possibility of redemption. She had betrayed Bolas. She had survived, but the cost was Gideon's life, and that debt would haunt her for forever. In the aftermath of the war, Liliana stood among the victors, but victory brought no peace. To the guilds of Ravnica, she was a traitor, a mass murderer who had unleashed horrors upon their city. Even the Gatewatch could not look at her without doubt. Kaya, ghost assassin and guildmaster, hunted her. Liliana fled, returning to Dominaria, back to the ruins of her family estate in Caligo. There she confronted echoes of her past, imposters who claimed her name, illusions conjured to torment her, the lingering presence of the Raven Man. It was there that Ugin, the spirit dragon, came to her. He urged her to consider a different path, to step away from the cycle of ambition and servitude that had defined her life. Slowly, painfully, she began to listen. Liliana surrendered the chain bell, relinquishing the artifact that had been both her weapon and her curse. Without it, she felt diminished, but also freer than she had in years. For the first time, she contemplated what it meant to live without chains. Her journey led her to Strixhaven, the great school of magic on Arcavios. There, under the alias Professor Onyx, she took up teaching. She still walked the path of necromancy, but now as a mentor, as a guide. The shadows had not left her, but she no longer let them define her. For perhaps the first time, Liliana Vess chose not power, but purpose. Liliana's story is one of power and the prices paid for it. She was born to privilege, but her choices led her into darkness. She damned her brother in an attempt to save him. She signed her soul away to 4 demons for the promise of strength. She murdered angels, she destroyed gods, she became a general of death itself. And yet, she survived. More than that, she changed. For all her betrayals, for all her selfishness, Liliana proved that even the darkest path can bend toward redemption. Today, she remains one of the most powerful necromancers in the multiverse, but she is also something more: a teacher, a survivor, a woman who has faced her mistakes and chosen to live with them. Her future is unwritten, balanced on the edge of shadow and of light. Liliana Vess will never be a simple hero, but neither is she the villain she once was. She is something far more dangerous and far more human. A woman who has learned to endure, adapt, to rise again, no matter the cost. This was the story of Liliana Vess, a planeswalker who sold her soul, lost everything, and still found a way to reclaim herself. Her journey reminds us that in Magic the Gathering, even the darkest figures carry sparks of light. If you made it this far, thank you so much for listening to the video. If you liked it, leave a like, comment who you'd like to see lore on next. Don't forget to subscribe and share this video to those that you think would enjoy it. Thanks again for the support. I'll see you guys next time.